This is nice to be here. It feels a little bit like home, a home that I've been away from a long time, but home nonetheless. And this is an exciting time for you, university. Wow, I vaguely remember that. Shameless plug for TEDx. It feels like square one of the adult life you're about to build. And it's exciting. Just outside that door, it feels like the future is waiting for you, and it's a big future, and it's dark, and it's thrilling, and it's terrifying because it's uncertain and it's unknown. And I'm sure more than one of you have woken up in the middle of the night and you've walked to the bathroom, you've flipped on the light, and you've stared at yourself in the mirror. And you had a good long look and you asked yourself, who am I? Who am I? That's a big question. That's a very heavy and dangerous question. That's like existential time. When I was in university, I stood in front of that mirror and I looked at myself and I said, who am I? And I picked up a razor blade that was sitting beside the sink and I started to shave my head. And then I mailed that hair to my mother. I have never been shy of the great dramatic gesture. But it's a big question. Who am I? And most of you will be prone to ask that question at this time in your life. But today I'm going to say, don't ask that question. You see, who am I is the question of the critic. Now, it's the historian. It's the map maker. It feels kind of like you're taking a Sharpie and you're drawing an outline of your body, and it's permanent and you can't escape it. And it comes to me. Instead, I want you to think like an artist. I want you to think like a creator. I want you to ask the question, who do I want to be? See, that question starts something in yourself, a movement forward, a movement away, but also towards the becoming. I came to Queens in 1990. Wow, has anyone ever cried in a TED Talk? I came from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I came to Queen's University to study English literature and to play football for the Golden Gales. And I came dressed in borrowed robes, not literally, but I came, as many of you do, dressed in the expectations of my parents and my friends and my family and my teachers and the community and everyone that loved me and raised me and wanted what was best for me. But what they thought was best for me was usually what they knew and what they had experienced, the map they'd already drawn. And that me that I saw when I looked in the mirror was really just a reflection of all of those eyes as they'd watched me grow up, seeing me not necessarily how I was, but as they wanted to see me. After I graduated with a degree in English literature, I was going to become a lawyer, go to law school. My dad was a lawyer. I grew up with lawyers. That was a life that I could see because I had kind of lived it. And when we're growing up, we have certain skills that are encouraged and others that are left to fade away. Particularly, the skills that are encouraged are if they fit the narrative of the people that are writing the story for you, because that's really what you're doing at this stage in your life. You're acting in a story that someone else has written for you. The other big thing about coming to a place like this is you come with what they think is best, but you also come with the missed opportunities and the regrets and the dreams unlived of those people that sent you forward. I came to play football at Queens, and I loved playing football. I'm a very good football player, and it was a very good program. But I also knew that one of my dad's great regrets in life was that he didn't get to play university football, even though he was an excellent player, because he had to go work in a butcher shop every day after class to pay for his education. And I can remember seeing him at Richardson Stadium, the first practice that I had as a freshman, and him watching me and this look on his face. And I realized that I was not just the hero of my story, but I was the hero of his story, and how important my life was to him. And it was touching. But I realized that it wasn't my own life yet. In third year, the fates interceded. And I say fates because I'm a flake. And even if I denied that, everybody who knows me would just say, Greg, no, you are a flake. But the fates interceded, and I was taking a playwriting class as an elective with a wonderful professor of drama, Fred Uringer. And Fred gave me an extraordinary gift because he put up another mirror in front of me. And he saw something in me that I had never seen in myself. He saw an artist and he saw an actor. And the gift that Fred gave me is he allowed me to see myself in that. At the end of my third year, he approached me and he said, Greg, I'm going to be putting on a production of Hamlet next year. And it's a very interesting concept he had. It sort of really honed in on the question of identity and the mutable self. And his concept was that all the different actors in the cast would play Hamlet at various stages in his life. And we would have masks and we'd transfer identity, and one actor would become Hamlet and then someone else. And it was really a fascinating idea, the mutable self, identity as fluid. And he said, would you like to audition for this play? And I looked at him and I said, yes. And I was saying yes to him, but I was also saying yes to the me that I could now see in his eyes. So third year ended, talked to my football coach. I said, gentlemen, we won the Vanier Cup, but I think that I'm going to try a new adventure. I started auditioning for this play in fourth year. It was quite a long process, 3 weeks. Different actors would be reading the part at different stages of the play, chemistry reads, character reads, and it sort of went on in that way. And it was fascinating to watch the different actors becoming Hamlet for just a moment. And at the end of about 3 weeks, Fred called me aside at the end of one of these audition rehearsals. And he said, Greg, I've had this idea for this play in my head since I was a young man in theater school myself. And this is probably going to be my last Hamlet that I ever direct. I'd like to scrap my concept, and I'd like you to play Hamlet alone. I think he felt that it was important for me, somehow. It was extraordinary. I was young, I was arrogant, I was eternally confident. What could go wrong? The same night that I was cast as Hamlet, I kissed the woman who has now been my wife of over 20 years for the first time. The next month, for the next month, I was racing from rehearsals at this theater to her little third floor walk-up on Aberdeen, and I was falling in love with acting and falling in love with her, and there was this great tumult in me, and I was running so fast away from what I was, but I didn't know where I was running yet, but I was just going. And I also had to play Hamlet. I knew nothing about acting at all. Zero. But I knew that the play had something to do with mortality and identity. To be or not to be, that is the question. Who am I? Big questions. And I thought, I got to get inside this somehow. I have to understand this in my body. Now, the set for that play was very simple. Bare stage, very little costuming. And on the stage there was a riser, and in that riser there was a coffin built into the stage that could come out. And the coffin would stand in as Claudius's throne, and it would also be the coffin for the gravedigger with Yorick's skull. And I thought, I'm really afraid of death. I was afraid of death then, I'm afraid of death now, and I'm sure that will continue right up until the last breath. But I wanted to confront that. I wanted to understand what's he struggling with. So I snuck into the theater one night with a little pocket watch that my grandfather had given me. And I snuck up onto the stage, and I lifted the lid of the coffin, and I got inside, and I closed the lid, and I put the watch beside my ear. Tick, 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 thump, 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 thump. This little watch, and my heart just filling this coffin. And as I was lying there through the night, I had two really meaningful realizations for myself. One, that tick, 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 that beat, 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 that drum beat, that marching army would end in silence. And I would end in a box. And the second realization that became very physically obvious in that moment is that box is built for one. There would be no room for all the expectations of all the people that had looked at me in a certain way, that had ideas for my life. My life would fit in there. And I decided in that moment that I was going to live a life of risk and heartbreak and adventure and glory and failure, and it was going to be mine. And I popped out of that coffin. And I did Hamlet, and I decided I want to be an actor. And what does an actor do? I had no idea, but I'm going to immerse myself. I'm going to become an actor. So my Danielle and I, we packed a little tiny suitcase. We hopped on a train. We went to New York City. Because if you want to be an actor, you go to New York City. In my mind, that's what I knew. I didn't know much, but I knew acting was happening there. So I get into this amazing school, Circle in the Square Theater School on Broadway. School, Benicio del Toro went there, Philip Seymour Hoffman, amazing curriculum. It's a real balance between classical acting and some of the techniques of the method. Now, the method is very misunderstood. The method is just really a way of becoming the character and the circumstances so truthfully that you live and experience the character that the author has created. It's a wonderful gift to give yourself in service of the words, the idea of someone else, to literally become someone new because an author imagined it. So that was my life, learning to act, role to role, becoming someone new every time, which was exciting for me, probably really frustrating for my wife and kids. But that was it. You move beyond. Each time there'd be a new author and a new character and a new me, and then in between those moments there'd be this emptiness. Because I was living a creative life, but I wasn't creating my life, and I was stepping forward in the dark, in that tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow out there into a future that I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what shape I should take. That happened for the next couple of decades. There was highs, there was lows, good times and bad. And then one character appeared on the horizon right about the time I was turning 40, and I was having a big who am I moment. And there's a character named Jeremy Danvers in a series that was going to become Bitten, based on a very successful series of novels by a woman named Kelly Armstrong. And I wanted this character. He was the pack alpha of a family of werewolves, but he was, in my mind's eye, the way he was written, he was the perfect embodiment of masculinity. He was strong and decisive, but he was also vulnerable, and he could compromise and he could listen. And I wanted that part, and I got that part. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and I realized I don't measure up. That who am I is not worthy for that character. So I went to work on myself. I mean, beside the obvious, grow your hair, grow your beard, learn to throw an axe. I worked with a therapist who specialized in male energy and anger to deal with issues in myself. I learned to ground myself. I meditated. I reinvested myself into my marriage, into my kids. I studied Krav Maga, I boxed. I realized that this character was a great mentor, so I started to volunteer with at-risk young men in the inner city of Toronto, teaching them acting. In the pursuit of this vision that this author had, I changed, and I became someone better. I became someone fuller, and my life was fuller for the experience. And then, of course, like all shows, it ended. And I felt slightly lost. Who am I? I had no answer. I still had characteristics of this character that I so loved, but I didn't have the form to live him in. And then I had this thought, I've been an actor for so long, I've been in and out of characters in the service of the author. The words are on the page, that's my guidepost. I do everything I have to do to become that person. I become that person through the actions I take, the repeated actions. You practice them and practice them and practice them until you are them. And I've been gifted in my lost moments with the great teachings of Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield and Jim Rohn and lists and visualization and intention and all of those tools. And I just needed to bring them together in some great artistic venture, because that's my bent. I realized, well, Why can't I just write the life I want to lead and decide what character would have to be the hero of that story and then just go become that? And I closed my eyes and I started to think, like, what would my dream life look like? What would the adventure that I would want to lead look like? And who is the guy to live that life? I started doing it. I started doing that. It was the most amazing artistic endeavor of my life, writing me and then becoming me. Write the part and then act like a method actor and become it. And you have this amazing choice. You have this amazing ability to be an artist and to be a creator. And that doesn't mean you have to be an actor. That doesn't mean you have to go into a life of the arts. It means you have to create your life and empower yourself. Because I'm going to tell you something. That tick, tick, tick of the clock and this thump, thump, thump of your heart is now. And it will end. So today I want you to go home and I want you to get in front of a mirror and get real still and very quiet and close your eyes and drown out all the voices that you've heard growing up that have told you who you should be. And close your eyes and you open your imagination and ask yourself, who do I want to be? And then you go and you get a pen and you start writing down everything that comes to you. Trust your heart, trust your gut, write it down, write it down, write it down. And then once you have this story, these broad strokes, this outline, who is the person that would best serve that hero's journey? And then take active steps to become that person, because you have that power. You have that power. And all our stories are going to end in the same place, and it is a wooden box for one. And it would be the greatest tragedy of your life if you did not fill that box with the hero of the greatest adventure that you could imagine. Thank you.